AVC, how's it going? Right, okay, a couple of weeks ago I did my top 5 records of the year, and that was all new music. So today I'm going to show my top 5 of the other stuff, you know, sort of compilations, reissues, archival releases, that sort of stuff. So see what you think. So starting off with this is version Excursion. It's a compilation put together by Don Letts. Now, Don Letts, of course, is a filmmaker, broadcaster, previously a member of Big Audio Dynamite. And he has a show on Six Music, and I really like his taste in music. I say his show is a really good way of discovering new stuff, and his compilations do exactly the same thing. And I say this is 20 odd tracks, and it features cover versions all done in a dub style. So if you like dub music, you'll like this. And I'm going to do a needle drop on a version of There's Nothing Like This, the old Omar tune from the early 90s, as done by Ash Walker.
There's nothing like this. There's nothing like this. Sip a glass of cold champagne wine. The rug that we lie on is divine, and there's no ecstasy, the word of the night.
Right, so next up is Neil Young's album Live at Carnegie Hall. Now, this is a performance from 1970. Now, I find it interesting, over the last few years, he's released 3 or 4 albums now, all part of this sort of archive bootleg series of records, which are all performances from within sort of 3 or 4 months of each other, all late 1970, early 71. You've got this, there's the Young Shakespeare album, the Live at Massey Hall album, and I suppose what's interesting is focused so heavily on this part of his career, which I suppose, you know, it's when many of his great songs were written and released. You know, it's around that sort of time of harvest and after the gold rush. But I mean, what I like about this album in particular, it's the sort of innocence of it, the naivety. There's loads of mistakes with his guitar playing and his piano playing, but that doesn't matter. You know, there's a nice moment when he's doing Sugar Mountain and the audience are clapping along and they're throwing him basically, he can't sing and play while they're clapping, so he asks them to shut up, which, you know, it's a nice moment. It just sort of shows his limitations really at that point. Now, Neil Young has actually put out 2 of my favourite albums this year. This, and just a couple of weeks ago, he released his latest album with Crazy Horse, Barn, which I think is an absolutely wonderful record. And if it had been released earlier in the year and I'd heard it sooner, I'd definitely include it in my top 5 albums of the year. So yeah, check this one out. This is definitely worth a listen.
Dreamer of pictures, I run in the night. You see us together, chasing the moonlight, my cinnamon girl.
So if I had to pick my favourite album for the past 12 months, whether that be new music or reissues or whatever, it's going to have to be this. This is the Daptone Supersoul review live at the Apollo. So this was a performance recorded in 2014 at the Apollo Theatre in New York City, and it is a celebration of 20 years of Daptone Records. Now, I've spoken about Daptone at length before. I think Daptone is one of the most important record labels of the last 25 years. There's so many labels, so many artists out there at the moment trying to recreate that 60s soul sound. And I've said before, most of it just leaves me cold. Daptone just got it right. They had the sound, but they also had the songs to back it up. And they certainly had the artists to sing them. Now, so this is basically, it's like an old school soul review. You think about those old Motown reviews with Stevie Wonder on the same bill as the Supremes and the Four Tops, all that sort of stuff. This is the cream of the Daptone label. So you've got Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, Charles Bradley, Naomi Shelton, the Budos Band. It's just a wonderful performance. Now, take an artist like Charles Bradley. He didn't record his first album till his early 60s. He'd been performing for years, for decades, mainly as Black Velvet. It was a James Brown tribute act. And he kept approaching Daptone Records looking for a deal. And they basically said, it's no good trying to sound like somebody else. You've got to bring something of yourself to the performance, to the recording. And, did he do that with that debut album? His debut album is one of the best albums of the last 20 years. It's a brilliant soul record. You believe every word that he says, it's absolutely incredible. And this whole album, this whole performance is like that. As I say, this is definitely my favourite album of 2021. And if you haven't heard it, buy it, stream it, whatever. I can't speak highly enough about it. So sticking with that sort of classic soul sounds, this is David Ruffin with his album David. This was originally completed in 1971. Now, David Ruffin was obviously the lead vocalist with the Temptations. He sang on, it's his vocal on tracks such as My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg. A wonderful soul vocalist. Now, he was kicked out of the band in the late 60s, but he still continued to record for Motown, but clearly something wasn't right there. His face didn't fit. He had lots of issues, drug issues and such like. But the fact is, he should have been a massive solo star in his own right, but he wasn't. This album was completed in 71. I think it would have been his third record for the label. And it was shelved. It was never put out. Now, it has come out since then. It was put out on CD in the early 2000s. But this is the first time it's officially been put out on vinyl. And it's been put out by Third Man Records. Now, they've done a great job with it. It's a 2-disc set. The second disc is full of mono mixes and additional tracks. Fantastically done. However, my issue with this is the price. Now, this is quite simply the most expensive new release I've ever purchased. So, ignoring box sets or stuff like that, if you're talking about single or double albums, this is considerably more than anything else that I've picked up previously. So I hope that's not the way that things are going. But that aside, it's well done. It's just too expensive.
I can almost see your face right here before my eyes, and I can almost taste the tears that drip right down upon my lips the moment that I knew, baby, that never again would I be seeing you. No, listen, there's no one that can take the place. Hold in my heart, the thought that seems to cross my mind is knowing by now you're in the arms of someone new. And here I stand with nothing to do, baby. So darling, take a little water in the shower.
So my final pick is Radiohead with Kid Amnesia. Now this is a reissue of the two albums that they put out in the early 2000s, Kid A and Amnesiac. Now it's easy to forget just how much of a shock to the system these two records were to Radiohead fans at the time. Well, to some Radiohead fans. Anybody that was expecting another OK Computer or the Benz Mark II were sorely disappointed, because you know these records are totally different. I mean, I don't know how long it is. Kid A came out first, and I don't know how far you get into Kid A before you hear a recognisable guitar. It's certainly quite a way, but yeah, I love these records. Yeah, these are I love these records. I loved them at the time. I shared a house with a couple of friends at the time, and we played these records a lot. And I saw them play in Oxford, a big sort of homecoming gig at South Park in Oxford in about 2001, 2002. The bill was just made up of Oxford bands, so you had Radiohead headlining, Supergrass supporting, the Humphrey Littleton big bands underneath them. So it was a great day out, although it pissed it down all day. I don't think I've ever been so wet at a gig, you know, when your clothes just can't absorb any more water. It was a bit like that, but still the music was wonderful, and they played a good chunk of Kid A at that gig. And I think for that reason I'll always love this record. If you haven't heard them, I mean, I'm not sure how different they sound now. I mean, I think we just accepted that this is what Radiohead sounds like, but you know, back then, as I say, it certainly was a shock to the system. But yeah, wonderful records. And there you go, that's my 5. Cheers.